Welcome to Evangelicalish, where we discuss the good, the bad, and the ugly of the American Evangelical Church, deconstruction, faith, and God's love through it all. Join us for these episodes live on our Evangelicalish YouTube page on Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 Central, and 6 o'clock Pacific. Let's journey together.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Evangelicalish. It is good to see everybody this evening. It is good to be back. I feel like I have been off for so long, and then last week getting stuck on a flight and everything like that. So it's good to see everybody.
Glad and it's 7 Mountain Time.
Yes. Welcome to Evangelicalish. It starts at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. We got a comment earlier. Dan was like, you guys never mentioned Mountain Time. So welcome to Evangelicalish. It happens at 7 p.m. Mountain Time.
It is a little, what is it, time zonist? Because we're not in Mountain Time, so we just don't mention it. We need to do better about that and be inclusive of all the time zones.
Yeah, time zone inclusive. Yeah. I never really thought I was time zonist, but apparently I'm bigoted towards certain time zones. 7 mountains. Oh wait. Anyway, good to see everybody tonight. Glad that y'all are hanging out with us. By the way, I'm Jeremy.
I'm April.
And I'm Paul.
And we're glad that you're tuning in this evening to Evangelicalish. So there is a lot that has happened in the news this past week. I don't want to dawdle too much, but if you could do us a favor, like, share, and comment on the video tonight. Go ahead and pass that along to your friends so that we can have other folks join the conversation. We would really appreciate that. But there has been a lot in the news this past week, especially pertaining to some of the circles that we run in. So I want to start out tonight talking about the tragedy that happened in Buffalo over the weekend. I'm sure everyone knows, but a shooter entered into a grocery store, had previously written a 180-page racist manifesto, had actually been hospitalized at one point, based on what I read, because people were so afraid that he was going to actually carry some of this out. Ended up live streaming this mass shooting and was in particularly targeting Black people. And so I know that everyone's hearts and minds and we're just, it's just devastating. But the question I want to lead with is, at what point is enough enough?
Yeah.
Sandy Hook, Parkland, Vegas. I don't know. Which one do we go to where we say that's enough?
Yeah. And I think it has been just absolutely, you kind of almost become, there have been so many people talking about the lack of media coverage with this. Columbine was enough. Well, but there was a school shooting before Columbine in Jonesboro, Arkansas, where my family's from. West Side School in Jonesboro.
And we have Janita, who's here from Sydney, watching in from Australia. Australia had a mass shooting, and she would probably know better than me, like 76, somewhere around there. And they said, you know what? It's stupid to have these mass killing weapons. Let's get rid of them. And they're all like, yeah, good idea. And haven't had a mass shooting since.
Right. It actually did something.
Yeah.
That's the hard part, is no one does anything about it.
Oh, it was in the 90s, Janita says.
Well, I mean, good on you in Australia, because we can't seem to figure it out. Here's the problem that I have, is that every time a situation happens like this, and this one, obviously, I think the other thing that we really need to get into is the fact that this one was so obviously racially charged, and how this guy just continued to just be let, left to his own devices over and over and over again. I mean, there's like a laundry list of times when he was either hospitalized or institutionalized, and or people would approach him and say, "Hey, we saw that you were writing this or talking about that." The whole replacement theory and just all this insane stuff. So I think there's that side that is obviously the large part of this story. But I don't understand why we continue just talking about gun violence in general. Why does this continue to be a political issue? And pro-life conservatives, riddle me this. If you love life so much, why do you love your guns so much when people and children continue to die out of nonsensical gun violence? But you're so pro-life. But you're so pro-life that you want to take Roe v. Wade away. You want to, all this other stuff. But people are continuing to be slaughtered because of just horrific gun laws.
Not to mention the shooter was 18, who could have really benefited from some anti-racism education in school. Not only are they against banning guns, but they're trying to ban, CRT is not taught in elementary school, but they're trying to ban any type of racial
DEI
education.
They want to ban DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yes, right. Which they call it CRT, because they don't even know what CRT is.
Exactly.
But yeah, the absolute denial that we have a gun issue, and that we have a race issue, and Buffalo is a tragic example of both coming to a head.
If you watch Fox News after the shooting, which I did, they immediately started talking about all the shootings that happened in all of America on that day. Tucker Carlson listed all of these shootings. These people were shot here over the weekend. These people shot here, and some were shot in Buffalo too. And
how dismissive!
It's horrifying. And
so we're just okay with that. The party of morality, the party of pro-life, is just okay with, well, it's not a big deal. Like, why are we even talking about Buffalo when there were just people dying all in the streets? They want the Wild West. That's what they want.
By a young man who apologized for pointing his gun at a white person before he shot a black woman. It's terrible. And the crazy thing is, and it's definitely political. It's definitely trained. I think last I saw, about 90% of Americans are for common sense background check gun laws. And we can't even do that because any Republican who stands for even background checks will never get elected again. And so we're just in this crazy place where every time there's a shooting, it's like, no, we can't talk about gun law. It's too emotional. And then, 2 weeks later, we're like, now can we talk about it? No, nobody's thinking about that now. And it's just this crazy space that we've gotten ourselves into in America where we can't even have a logical discussion about the issue.
I second the motion.
Not to mention, just everything is so. I struggle with what do we do? With it just seems like we're so far away from having any type of solution to this. There are solutions, but there's just so much, I just feel like we're so far away from actually getting anything done because of the opposition and the absolute denial from white people. I saw a TikTok earlier that a black woman, I don't remember the username, was saying that the racist white people are organized. And they are campaigning, and they are, fighting CRT. I mean, it's the conservative movement, but it's white racists are organized, and they are out. They are louder than the non-racist white people. And she was just saying, hey, you white people who are not racist, that we need to start being louder to combat it. And I know it's, and I was convicted and was thinking, sitting with it, what can I do in my life? And what I come to is we all know someone who's racist. Like we all, whether they're in our family, whether it's people that we know, like at a small level, like we just can't let these offhanded racist comments that I hear and all over this town, like let those slide. And like those are something small, but like we've got to start calling out our own people. And it's within the church too. Like
Yeah.
I think white supremacy and Christian supremacy are almost identical twins.
Well, and you go ahead, Paul.
I was just going to say, I think that's the problem is you have people who are listening to right-wing media all day long. Then they go to their church and they're getting what they hear in their media affirmed by their pastor.
Yeah.
And so it's this perfect echo chamber that they can't hear anything else. I was reading the other day, a gun in your home is exponentially more likely to kill somebody you know or somebody in your family than it is to stop an intruder coming into your house. I mean, it's not even close. It is you are a threat to your family if you have a gun in the house. Yet everybody is saying, no, we've got to protect that because my pistol is going to stop the government from coming in my front door. I mean, we've convinced ourselves that this is somehow standing against tyranny when it simply is a silly premise to begin with.
Where are all the good guys with guns that are supposed to stop these shootings?
It's 2022. If the government decides that they want you dead, they're not going to come knock on your door and have a 10 paces duel in your front yard. It's not going to happen. They're going to fire a missile from some ship out in the Atlantic and your house is going to explode before you know what hit you.
Or
that's
what's
going to happen.
Or
a drone. Yeah. So, we have our guns to, stand against a tyrannical government. If the government decided to be full of tyranny and take you out, you would wake up next to Jesus before you realized you went to sleep. Like that's the deal. And here's my thing with this. I think the most appalling thing is that this kid or this person.
Yeah, not a kid.
18-year-old man.
Yeah.
They don't call, if he were black, they would not be calling him a kid.
No.
He's
and so
18-year-old man.
Here's the thing I'm going to say. If he had been black, there would have been no questions asked. They would have slaughtered him in the middle of the aisle. There would have been no, like, let's talk about this. They wouldn't have tried to de-escalate. They would have mag dumped on this kid or this person. And so, that is absolutely unbelievable to me first off, but secondly, you're exactly right, Paul. Because I can't tell you how many, somebody commented earlier about, ads or whatever, Republican ads of them shooting guns and, this kind of thing, or the whole family's carrying an AR-15, including little Susie, who's like 6 with a gun as big as her body, right?
On Christmas cards.
Yeah. On Christmas cards or whatever. I'm going to tell you right now, you can scroll through those videos and those pictures. As someone who grew up around firearms, was taught that firearms are a tool, that they're a resource that we use, for hunting, for, protection, things like that. Right. The amount of, stupidity that people have around guns is absolutely insane. They have no discipline. They have no understanding. And the problem is that our government will let anybody have a gun. Doesn't matter. You can have a gun and you could not know which way is north and south on that thing. We just have a bunch of idiots with itchy booger hooks on bang bang switches, looking around for the next, thing that moves, and nobody has training. Nobody has understanding. And that is scary to death. I was, my grandpa would not allow me to carry a gun around him until I could do a certain checklist of things. And even then I was allowed for a while to carry an unloaded gun around him. And then I was trained to carry a loaded gun. There was a whole process. I went through safety courses and conceal and carry courses, like all of those things. Okay. There should be way more regulation with firearms.
Yep.
1,000%. Because
I don't think anybody is saying, let's get rid of all guns. That's
No.
the slippery slope. But my Second Amendment friends, I always ask, do you think there's any level? The amendment, Second Amendment says that the government can't ban you from having any weapon. So do you think your neighbor should be able to have a tank,
Right. A
surface to
bazooka?
air anti-aircraft missile, an atomic bomb? No, we all know there's a line here. And all we're doing is arguing about the line and being able to shoot 30 rounds a second that has no purpose in the world other than killing human beings makes no sense for the average citizen to hold on to. And we ought to be able to at least have that argument. And we can't even have that argument, and no elected official can even bring it up without then losing their next election, which is crazy.
I just think
it's all fear mongering. The fear mongering is that they're going to take your guns. And they also believe these insane out there conspiracies that Democrats are going to take over, or just even what the Buffalo shooter believed with the replacement theory that Tucker Carlson has been spewing on his show in over 400 segments and is now denying that he's ever said anything about it and that it actually comes from the left wing. Like, okay, Tucker. Honestly, Tucker should be charged.
Yeah, as an accomplice.
As an accomplice. There's blood on Tucker Carlson's hands. I mean, we already knew that. Like Fox News in general, and OAN, Newsmax, these people that are platforming white supremacists disguised as Christian nationalists, disguised as good old boys, they need to be charged because they are radicalizing white people for no reason. They're believing these lies. They're indoctrinating people to the point where this man thinks that he has to kill people to save the white race.
By the way, I reposted a TikTok that I ran in October of last year of Dan Patrick, the Republican lieutenant governor of Texas, saying out loud the replacement theory. He said the reason, the Democrats have opened the border, and the reason is because they want to have a revolution to take over white people's voting in America. He said it out loud on Fox News. You are being replaced by those people, and they're going to come and have lots of babies. He said it out loud, and they're going to take over the country because those people will all vote Democrat.
Well, and I think you brought this up earlier, Paul, and this is something we had talked about in the past, like the fact that when Trump's people and when Tucker Carlson, were sued over different legal issues, their defense is like, no reasonable person would ever actually believe this. Like, that's literally the defense that they used in court, that Tucker Carlson is an entertainer and people should. So what? So we have a guy who has a primetime talking head show
on a quote unquote news channel,
on a news network. And people, they fully anticipate people to watch it like WWE. Like they are saying their defense is that you can't pin him to anything because people should be watching this like pro wrestling.
Yeah.
You should just know it's made up. And there are people, but here's the problem. There are idiots like Marjorie Taylor Greene and her ilk that swallow it hook, line, and sinker. And then at the end of the day, you get these people that are following them, and they end up wanting to be a hero.
Yeah.
Riddle me this. Post 9/11, we were warned how evil Islam was as an entire religion because of the radicals. Right. How much different is Christianity now?
Yeah.
It's just not. This Christian nationalist version of Christianity is seeking radicalism.
I think I think that's right.
And to say, okay, and let me back that statement up just a second.
Go ahead.
Okay? What I was going to say is that, here we are with, because I believe that there are a ton of folks who are who practice Islam, who are amazing individuals. And Islam is not about that radicalism. That is just a group of people who have decided to be radical and go off the deep end. That's not what Islam teaches. It's not what Christianity and the Jesus of the Bible teaches either. Right. But, here we are with extremists on both sides, but they're going to cover for these white mass murderers in the name of Jesus in America.
And I keep thinking about what we can do. And in our Sunday community, Sunday morning, we mostly just talked about, hey, reach out to somebody who is a person of color in your life, a Black person, and just say, I don't have anything I can say other than I'm here with you and I'm hurting with you. But I hear all the time from people, well, that's not my church. That's not us. Well, excuse my language, but fuck you. Christians, yeah. Every Christian should be standing up and repudiating this. And what can we do? Like, challenge your friends, like, stop listening to right-wing media for a week. Just give it up for 5 days and read something else and see if it doesn't change your life and heart. I truly think when the Bible talks about false teachers and itchy ears, it's talking about these right-wing media outlets. Like, we're looking for media that will tell us what we want to hear rather than having a heart for truth. And any Christian that would rather live in an echo chamber than hear something that goes against our belief system, you are not following Jesus. You're not following the Bible, and you do not have a heart for God. The Bible says you are hard-hearted and you have lost your eyes to see and ears to hear. So I just challenge any right-winger listening to this, like, just take 5 days and not listen to it, not watch it, just detox from it for a little bit. And I guarantee you'll be amazed at how much of an impact it has on your heart.
Yeah. And I think the sad reality for me is realizing that, yes, it's becoming more obvious now, the extremism, but it's always been there. It was just hiding under the surface. We've talked about this at length, but the white American evangelical church is rooted in white supremacy.
Yeah.
Even the good ones, even the ones that probably mean well, and I do think a good majority of people do mean well, but intention doesn't negate impact. And the fact of the matter is, the evangelical church is a white supremacy machine that is now partnering with the Tucker Carlsons of the world, the Charlie Kirks of the world, the right-wing side. They are partnering as this larger force of power that is pushing both white supremacy and Christian supremacy. And they're the same. They're the same thing. The people that want Christian dominion, and look at all the laws, that the abortion bans, transgender discrimination laws, LGBTQ discrimination laws. They are constantly putting out laws, and those are the politicians that are doing that because of the evangelicals that are trying to push this literal biblical law on our land that is harming marginalized groups everywhere.
Yeah.
And if somebody doesn't believe what you're saying is true, April, as an example that I like to use in this a lot is when Focus on the Family talks about traditional family. How many times do you hear politicians talking about traditional family? They're an enemy against the traditional family. Traditional family, as explained by James Dobson in Focus on the Family, is a white Euro cultural construct. Not much of the rest of the world believes in traditional family. Most of the rest of the world believes in extended intergenerational family of something much larger than mom, dad, and 2 kids in the white picket fence. And that is a white supremacist belief that our culture of everybody leaving home and going out and buying their own home is a white Euro, white supremacy concept, that if you don't believe in family as we do, you're not living up to God's supreme plan for the world. And so that is just an example of how white supremacy is foundational to white Euro Christianity.
Bob Jones University didn't allow interracial dating until 2001, and that was only because they lost their tax exemption that they changed it.
Well, I have often counterpunched with my conservative evangelical friends. I ask them all the time, because the other phrase is, traditional marriage, but the other phrase is, biblical family or biblical marriage. My question is always like, so what does that mean exactly? Like, is that like Solomon, where I should have like 700 wives and 500 concubines? Or is that like, David, where I'm like, I got a few wives already, but I really like my buddy's wife over there, so I'm going to have him murdered so I can have another one? Like, what do you mean by that?
Well,
because
they don't
it's
talk
not
about
spelled
divorce.
out.
They don't talk about divorce because they get divorced. They let that.
No, exactly. It's the law of convenience is what it is. It's whatever makes the narrative convenient. And so when they start losing holds on certain things, they eventually just let it go. Like, like divorce, right? So for so long, there were marriages that were, families were basically allowing their young children to get married. Like, I remember my grandmother was 14 when she married my grandpa, right? Like, they stayed married until the day she died. But my grandpa would tell you they were mean to each other when they were younger, abusive towards one another when they were younger. So for a long time it was, well, if you're divorced, you don't have a place in the church. But behind closed doors, men were just beating the snot out of their wives because it was culturally acceptable during that time, right? Well, then all of a sudden, that's not a great look. Culture's really kicking back on us on this. So then now all of a sudden divorce is not that big of a deal, but it's got to be a monogamous heterosexual relationship now. And so it's just, it's whatever fits their narrative, whatever control they can have, whatever they can hang on.
And they have the audacity to call progressive Christians cherry pickers. How many times, like, you just cherry pick the Bible? Like, I will admit, I do cherry pick the Bible. I choose to follow the verses that
everybody cherry picks the Bible. You have to cherry pick the Bible,
and that don't oppress. I wear mixed fabric. I'm wearing mixed fabric right now. I eat shrimp sometimes. I definitely cherry pick. But they like to think like they have the moral high ground, like they don't cherry pick. Like everybody cherry picks. It's impossible not to, unless you stone your abusive kids. Don't do that. But literally, the Bible says that. So
please,
you're rebellious.
Please
kids.
Don't stone your kids.
Yeah, don't do that. I'm not advocating to that.
If I was following scripture verbatim, yesterday at lunch, my son got angry at me. And he was mad about some things going on here at home and some stuff that we had planned for him. And he took a piece of his chicken off his plate while I was talking to somebody else down the table, and he threw that piece of chicken at me in a restaurant. Mm. Now, you want to talk about like having to pray through some restraint. Like I was like, did you just throw chicken at me across the table? But if I was taking everything in scripture literal, I would have picked his happy little butt up. We would have gone out into the town square, and I would have called all my buddies, and we would have stoned him to death for disrespecting his father. That is literal biblical response.
Yeah.
And disobeying parents is in one of the lists of the sins that goes along with alleged homosexuality in one of the clobber passages in the New Testament. So it's equal to that.
Also, I don't go away into a tent every month for a week when I'm on my period.
And we're glad, because you don't ever miss episodes of Evangelicalish. So that's good for us.
I'm going to be out in a tent.
If you did, though, you could put a tent peg through a guy's head at some point, and that would be awesome.
You could do that. But that would be real awkward. We would all just no, right? Because you would go from this background to oh, April's in the tent this week. Oh, boy.
April's in the tent. Oh, my gosh.
All right, y'all. Let's run to a quick mid-roll on the other side. We're going to change topics. We're going to be talking about Greg Locke again, unfortunately, and we're also going to be asking this question. So hopefully not spend a ton of time on Greg himself, but I think the question is, along with some of this radical Christianity, this very highly politicized Christian nationalism. Should the church be paying taxes? We'll be back on the other side. You're watching and listening to Evangelicalish. Follow us to catch all the latest content and encouragement. You can check us out on TikTok by following @Evangelicalish or subscribe on YouTube by searching Evangelicalish. That's evangelical with an ISH. And don't forget to catch our live streams each and every single Wednesday night on YouTube at 9 Eastern, 8 Central, and 6 Pacific. And now back to the Evangelicalish podcast.
Sorry, I cut you off there, Jeremy. I was trying to keep it tight. Sorry.
It actually flowed so well because Jeremy was saying when we come back on, and then his voiceover Evangelicalish came in at the exact same time.
I meant to do that.
See, we've been doing this for a long time. We're getting really, really good. We also didn't discuss the order tonight, and we got it like we
on our
didn't
intro,
fumble all over each other. So
I thought that too.
We like professional.
I got about halfway into my first sentence, and I was like, "Oh shit!"
Yeah, we didn't go over it, but we nailed it. We nailed it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to talk about Greg Locke. We have talked about this person, this creature, many times on this whatever he is. We have talked about him. I mean, he always makes the news, and we all three made TikToks about him in the last couple of days because he went viral again. For saying stupid stuff, but it's like nothing new. Like Greg Locke says this kind of stuff. It was like just another Sunday, just an average.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Paul, do you want to play that and then we'll talk about it? This is Greg Locke from this past Sunday.
I'm to the place right now. If you vote Democrat, I don't even want you around this church. You can get out. You can get out, you demon. You can get out, you baby butchering.
Baby butcher.
Thief. You cannot be a Christian and vote Democrat in this nation. I don't care how mad that makes you. You get pissed off as you want to. You cannot be a Christian and vote Democrat in this nation. They are God-denying demons that butcher babies and hate this nation. They hate this nation. Get mad all you want to. I don't care if you stand. I don't care if you throw tomatoes, praise God. I'm about to throw a microphone up in his house. CNN can eat my dirty socks. You cannot be a Democrat and a Christian. You cannot. Somebody say amen.
Amen.
The rest of you, get out. Get out. Get out in the name of Jesus. I ain't playing your stupid games. Bunch of devils. I'm sick of it. They want to talk about the insurrection. Let me tell you something. You ain't seen an insurrection yet. You keep on pushing our buttons, you low-down sorry compromisers. You God-hating communist America. You'll find out what an insurrection is because we ain't playing your garbage. We ain't playing your mess. My Bible says that the church of the living God is an institution that the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. And the Bible says that we'll take it by force. That's what the Bible says. That's what the Bible says.
Can we be done with this? Oh my gosh.
So he should be on an FBI watch list that feels like a threat. That's not the first time he said stuff like that. He's threatened Second Amendment stuff. Ugh, stupid. Okay, so
can you imagine being the guy that has to buy a new microphone every week? He sure does. He bangs the heck out of that thing everywhere he goes. Go, 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 go.
I don't think they're hurting for money, sadly. But I'll just say on a lighter note, and then we can talk about that stupidity. He also later on goes on a rant about witches again. He was like, everybody thought I was crazy for talking about them witches. But now McDonald's just doing witches. They're putting tarot cards in Happy Meals. Like literally, that was part of his rant. That McDonald's is putting tarot cards in.
It made me so happy to read this week that he's been getting lots of tarot cards and pentagrams and sexual toys sent to him after his original witch rant.
Which he takes that as persecution.
Of course.
Just furthers his drive at, oh, look what the devil's doing. I must be doing something right. Oh, and also someone ADHD construction on TikTok put Yosemite Sam's audio over Greg Locke hopping around being angry, and it is seriously the most perfect They are the same. Greg Locke is Yosemite Sam from Looney Tunes. So,
Yeah.
What I hear all the time in these things is like, well, that's not our church. That's not us. But for one, by the way, you're right on the FBI, because at some point when people are telling you who they are, you ought to listen. And Greg Locke is saying loudly who we are in the evangelical church. And that is, we believe we are supposed to at some point militarily take over the government. And I did a TikTok on this. When I was a kid, we used to sing "Onward, Christian Soldiers." We used to sing, "I'm too young to march in the infantry, but I'm in the Lord's army." And we were taught that,
sir.
Yes, sir. We were taught that Jesus would come out of the clouds one day and wipe out all of the armies of the earth, and the blood would flow to the bridle of the horse. This is our teaching in the right-wing evangelical church. And I think it may get important, hello, FBI, if you're listening, to start to believe that the church is what Greg Locke is saying that it is. Even when some are saying it much quieter and much more nicely packaged, it is the same message that he's saying very messily, loudly, because it gets him a lot of fame and money.
All he hasn't said at this point is the South will rise again.
I'm not even sure he hasn't said that.
That is literally the only thing he's missing from the pulpit. At least I'm sure in his personal life he has said it. But
we just need to talk about too, like how problematic it is that, I mean, he said the quiet part out loud that you can't be a Christian and be a Democrat.
Yeah.
But I have heard that since I can remember.
He's not the first one. I learned that when I was a kid.
Right. That's exactly what I'm saying. That is nothing new. And that's so dismissive of people of color who overwhelmingly vote Democrat, like just percentage wise, like which just ties into Republican Christianity, Christian supremacy, white supremacy. Like it's saying you can't be a Christian and vote Democrat is also racist.
It is. It is. And I've heard it like this before, like, I'm not going to tell you who to vote for, but God is against abortion, and God is against gay marriage, and God is, blah, blah, blah. And so they don't say it like, because Greg Locke's too stupid to do it subtly, but the smarter ones just do it really subtly.
Well,
but they're saying the same thing.
I was a pastor's kid, and I remember sitting in meetings where, there'd be a room full of pastors, and I was just there because I was homeschooled and I had nowhere else to be. And I would hear them talk about like just off-putting, like just saying like, yeah, you can't be a Christian unless you vote Republican, like voting. And in fact, I believed it. I perpetuated that narrative as well. And when I was a teenager, I made a MySpace group called "I'm a Christian, therefore I'm a Republican." Like literally believed it. Even
America
though I knew.
Say Jesus.
I know. On the Jim Baker show. Come a long way.
Sorry. That was low-hanging fruit in this conversation.
I know. For those that don't know, I wrote an original song called "America Say Jesus" and sang it on the Jim Baker show when I was 18. So did a lot of good.
And indoctrination, man.
In our stream, Bill Johnson, the Bethel pastor, is a big name. And after the 2016 election, he wrote an op-ed in Christianity Today saying why Christians should vote for Donald Trump. And it was, a really jarring moment for a lot of us, because we thought, Pastor Bill was above the politics. We knew his wife was crazy, but we thought he was above it. And when he wrote that, it was like, so this really has taken over. Certainly the stream of Christendom that I come from. This is pervasive. This is not an outlier. Greg Locke is the loudest and dumbest saying it, but he's not an outlier by any stretch of the imagination.
So let's get to the topic at hand here. Talking about Greg Locke and even those who are a little bit smarter than Greg Locke, and they know how to manipulate to tell you to vote Republican. Should these churches be paying taxes? Should churches in general be paying taxes?
I think we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but I feel like yes, if you're going to be political and endorse candidates or talk about political parties, do the Greg Locks of the world, you absolutely should be paying taxes. You're not doing any good. You're basically a political party at that point, with like wrapped in a Christian flag. The Sean Foyts of the world should be paying taxes. Greg Locke should be paying taxes. Like, yes, absolutely. I think it's a little muddy when you get to like smaller churches and churches that actually do try to help people in the community. Because I do know churches that barely get by, that really like barely survive based on donations and stuff, that do good. So I think Paul said earlier that there should be, if you are tax exempt, it shouldn't just be you know, fill out a 501c3 or whatever it is, and then that's it. But you should be reporting yearly or quarterly how all that money is being spent, to keep like basically having to keep renewing that tax-free exemption.
Yeah. I was on the board of a international church network, and we did studies on this and found that most churches, and I think we were looking at Protestant evangelical churches, spend 80% plus of their income on staff salaries and building maintenance. And then the other 20% is almost completely spent on internal ministry, upgrading the sound system, getting better padded chairs. And so I totally believe in the not-for-profit space and the 501c3 covenant. I think it's important. But once it's starting to get abused now, and what people don't realize is not only are churches tax exempt on their income, but they pay no property tax, and they tend to hold, particularly mega churches, hold very prime property, and none of it is being paid in property tax to help schools and roads and the things that all the rest of us pay into. And Jeremy, you and I know this well, pastors get housing allowance. So they get to deduct what they spend for furniture, PG&E, electricity, yard work. They get to deduct that amount from their taxes and still get to write off their mortgage interest against their taxes. So there's an incredible amount of money being taken out of our economy by the churches. And I think the churches, just where we are now, have to prove, A, that you're not endorsing political candidates, which is the law, the 501c3 statute, that you cannot endorse candidates at all, and prove that you are actually charitably helping the community in which you live. And we could talk about standards to set that and prove it.
Yeah, and I think that's it, right? Is like I think that just like if you're self-employed, you you file quarterly taxes or whatever. Or submit quarterly estimates. I think 501c3s at churches, mainly because that's what we're talking about, should have to do that and show that they are, whatever the law would be set as, X amount is being done as outreach, and being able to show, money in, money back out into the community. I find it fascinating.
Think it should be like 40%.
Oh, I think you should be past 50. I have often said if you're not sending over half of your income back into the community, then I got questions. And I understand like needing staff and stuff like that, but it's a nonprofit. Like, let's get real.
It seems
the
like
other side.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say the other side of it too is that I find it really fascinating that it's the same churches who want so desperately to protect their tax exempt status and fight so hard to make sure that they are getting all those benefits, when it's so many of them who are complaining about welfare, complaining about social programs and things like that. Okay, so you want to say, well, I want to keep my money in my pocket, but I don't want you to have any from the government? Yeah, it makes a ton of sense.
Well, and it seems like it's pretty easy to say you're a church. I mean, I know there's paperwork and stuff, but it's not hard to be a 501c3. But it seems really hard to lose that status. Like, Greg Locke has been saying stuff for years that should have lost him that status, because it is technically illegal. You are not allowed to endorse candidates or a political party from the pulpit. And Greg Locke has definitely done that. And why has he not lost his, why is he still tax exempt? I don't understand. I don't understand how, like, why is it so hard? Like, and people have been reporting him. Hopefully there's an investigation going on.
Yeah.
At
And
least.
I mean, the government is hesitant to touch churches. They just are. And people, when I was pastoring, they were telling, they're going to come after us. They're going to come after our tax exempt status. They're going to force us to perform gay weddings. And I said, guys, it's just not the government is terrified to touch churches. And so, we're way more likely to let churches get away with some really horrendous stuff than to try to oppress. And there was a Johnson amendment that said, churches can't endorse political candidates. President Trump signed an executive order telling his administration to not enforce that rule. So I'm not sure if Biden has rescinded that yet or not, but Trump specifically turned that over with an executive order. But still, in the 501c3 laws, it says you can use 5% of your resources to promote political issues that are in line with your mission, but you cannot endorse candidates.
Well, and here's the other thing too, is, imagine the first church, whether it be Greg Locke's or whoever the case is, the first church that gets their tax exempt status yanked, they become a martyr.
Oh yeah.
For all these Christian nationalists. And I think that's exactly why the government is so slow to pull the trigger on anything radical like that, because even though it would be justified, because they know they would have a war on their hands. But
the flip side is that's, look, the insurrection. A lot of those conspiracies were spread in churches that led election fraud.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't, because they're becoming more and more violent by letting them say whatever they want. But if they took it away too, then they would just feel even more empowered in their war on whatever they're even warring against.
We're also living in a country where a president literally incited an insurrection
and didn't go to jail
and stayed in office.
Yeah.
No, not just didn't go to jail, kept his job.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
Stupid.
Another thing about church's tax exemption, if you earmark the money you give to a church, like you say, I want this money to be used to go to the sound system, or even like I want this to go to a particular missionary, you are not allowed to use that as a tax deductible giving. If you earmark the giving, now everybody does it, but by the letter of the law, if I give money to a church and say, use this money to put my name on a building, it is illegal for me to use that as a tax exemption on my taxes.
Interesting.
Not many people know that, but that is a fact. I don't think the IRS ever goes after anybody for that, but it is a violation of the law.
Did y'all ever go to church and they would hand out like the sample ballots of like who to vote for and stuff? Yeah, because I remember I've never been in a church service personally where they endorsed a candidate by name, but they say everything but the name. In 2016, we were at a church in Georgia, and the pastor got up and was like, "Here at this church, we're not going to tell you who to vote for in the election, but we are going to tell you to vote on biblical values. So you want to vote for the candidate that's pro-life, pro-Israel, pro-biblical marriage."
Pro-Israel, I forgot that one.
Yeah. Like they basically say the Republican, he should have just said "in rhymes with rump," because we all knew he was talking about rump.
Oh, I heard a pastor say that once. Who was? Oh, yeah, it was April.
Yeah.
I know, I made a TikTok about it.
So I have been in a church, and I left this church, and this was one of the reasons why. Here in Oklahoma, we had specifically in the Southern Baptist Convention here in Oklahoma, we have the largest youth camp in the country here in Oklahoma. They have 8 weeks of student camp, and there's like 8,000 to 10,000 students there a week. It is ginormous, and it is a Baptist camp. It is a brainwashing session. The guy who ran that camp ran for state house, for House of Representatives and won, and is now our senator. or one of our 2 senators. I was in a church that had him and his team come in, and he spoke on a Sunday morning, and the pastor got up at the end and he was like, if you're not voting for, he was representative then, now senator. If you're not voting for Representative Langford before, you really are.
Oh.
You really probably are now.
It was
Because he's so great. It was Langford. Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. So, I mean, because he went directly from a Southern Baptist job, one of the big wigs here in Oklahoma to running for office. And so he is very tied in with the churches.
Yeah.
And so they were passing out bumper stickers in the lobby. You could donate to his campaign in the lobby.
Gross.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now that should be illegal. That should be illegal.
But
now,
he's a rhino, according to the guy that's running against him here in Oklahoma, who is running on election fraud and was endorsed, had a rally with Michael Flynn here in Oklahoma.
Oh my gosh.
another good.
Yeah, it's a
Christian
good
man.
time. Y'all ought to come here. It's really good.
Well, I think churches shouldn't be hosting those political rallies either.
Oh, you think that's
Yeah.
poor judgment? Yeah, I do too.
Like what's his face? John Hagee's church, where they were chanting "Let's go, Brandon." And
the funny thing about it is, this is what those first century religious people thought. Like, we're going to have a Messiah show up. He's going to overthrow Rome and make Israel great again. That was their belief system.
Yeah, make Israel great.
And the thing keeping this from happening are those Samaritans who make our religion impure. And then it was Christians. And so Saul of Tarsus went killing Christians because we've got to kill all Christians. So we purify the religion so that Israel can be made great again and God's plan can be extant on earth. It's the exact same belief system. And in Acts chapter 1, Jesus' very last day on earth, they're like, okay, Jesus, now you're going to take over the government. Today's the day. And he's like, holy shit, guys.
Yeah.
You still don't get it. And I think he did say, holy shit. They just took that out of the Bible.
Yeah,
and he's like, you still don't get it. You morons. I guess I'm going to have to bolt it out of here. So you'll finally figure out I'm not here to take over the government. And that is our belief system. Totally 100% the opposite of who Jesus was, and 100% in alignment with the religious system he stood against.
Greg Locke, going full circle here, of several weeks ago, a couple months ago, literally said that from the pulpit. Said the quiet part out loud. He said, everyone's like, you just need to be more like Jesus. So they say, Pastor, you need to sound more like Jesus. Well, if I did, no one would pay to see me.
Yeah, no one would. That don't sell tickets. That's what he said. That don't sell tickets.
Yep.
Yeah.
Again, saying the quiet part out loud.
Jesus. They don't like Jesus.
Yeah, no, he doesn't. Listen, he likes white Republican Jesus. He likes that guy.
Yeah.
He doesn't like the Jesus in the Bible. And
Classic
like
Jesus.
Yeah. Are y'all with OG Jesus or Republican Jesus? Like, I just need to know. Oh man. Yeah.
All right, what's our little game tonight, Jeremy? We're gonna play.
In honor of Madison Cawthorn losing in the primary yesterday evening, can we all just pause for a moment of silence for Madison Cawthorn's career in the U.S. House of Representatives?
Although knowing the Republicans these days, it's probably some other hack job nutball who's taken over for it.
Oh, I'm sure it's probably worse, but hey, when you got a list of scandals because you're trying to call out all your friends, you end up getting the axe. So Madison Cawthorn will now be searching new employment, my friends. He will no longer be employed by the government, and he is no longer, in November, will no longer be a representative from the great state of North Carolina. So with that in mind, I want everyone, our friends in the comments, as well as us, to dialogue. What do you think that Representative Cawthorn will do next for employment? What is Madison Cawthorn's next job?
Wow.
Well, on a serious note, I hope that he can go and live his truth and
Yes.
and stop being a bigot.
Yes. Yeah, it's
About it.
okay. You can come out of the closet now, Madison.
You know what could be cool? Maybe in 5-10 years, he deconstructs, says how wrong he is, comes out as gay, and
Yeah.
is now running for office. I mean, who knows? Maybe he
Dan
tries to
said-
flip parties.
Dan said Greg Locke's janitor. I think that's good. Maybe he'll be Greg Locke's next administrative assistant, and it'll work out the way it did last time with Greg Locke's administrative assistant.
Hmm.
So maybe Greg and Madison can be besties.
I could see him. Maybe he could do stand up. I could see him going around, or he could go around and do comedy.
Dildo test.
So let's be careful
Stan,
there, April.
Did you just? Yeah,
Stand up.
that's.
I didn't mean it that way, and as soon as it came out of my mouth, I thought, "Oh, no,
I was like,
I'm gonna
that's-
do jokes."
I'm not.
No, stop it. We are.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's not your heart. That's not your
No.
heart.
No,
Here,
right.
Here, I'll
Stand-up
show you
comedy
this.
is the thing.
I think Madison's job now could be lingerie model. I think Victoria's Secrets is calling him up, and he's jumping in as lingerie model. That will be his future employment.
That's.
I feel kind of bad. Like, he's an awful human being. Don't get me wrong, but he's lost everything in the last year. Like, he was divorced. Like, he's a monster. He has done harm. But also, I don't know. I feel, I don't know.
I honestly believe like he told some of the secrets of Congress out loud.
Right.
And
Yeah.
Good for him.
he
for
spoke
doing
against
that.
some Republican guys, and they said, "Oh, here's what happens, young man. When you start telling the secrets of Washington, D.C., we start letting yours get out to the media somehow." And they just drip him to death.
I think what I don't like about it is that people that are just as bad as Madison, if not worse, are the ones that got rid of him. Are the ones that got rid of him and blackmailed him. You know, like there's just so many more evils in the world. But I mean, he definitely deserved it. I'm not saying he didn't, but I do hope he takes this as a learning opportunity and does some soul searching, gets some therapy. And maybe this is his wake up call, and he can eventually one day maybe not be an asshole.
I agree. I hope that this is his wake up call. You know, kind of all kidding aside, you are not wrong, April. He has been through a lot. You know, in the last couple of years. Now, I don't feel sorry for him. Like, I mean, it's
no, I know.
Listen,
I mean, and that might have been strong. No. It feels weird celebrating someone's like demise. I mean, I don't know.
I can appreciate
so kind-hearted, April. I love it.
I can appreciate feeling sorry for him. I still struggle to look at somebody who lopped their own hand off and say, "Oh man," you know, kind of.
No, I know. I mean, he's a terrible human being. I need to remember that.
But I will say, you know, I mean, he's been through a divorce. He's lost his job. You know, he obviously has lost some friends through the process. He's clearly, you know, obviously covering up some things about himself. I mean, he's not being truthful with himself.
Well, and I think the thing that when I say I feel sorry for him is and just from personal, you know, friends that are LGBTQ, it's never okay to out someone when they're not ready, you know, like, I don't know how he identifies, if he'll ever even come out. But I wouldn't wish someone being outed against their wishes, like on anybody, because that's like some pain and trauma. And he's probably indoctrinated too, which is why he hasn't.
Yeah. That's what I was going to jump in and say. He is a product of the evangelical church. He is a Christian who believes it's Christian to be a right-wing asshole. Lauren Boebert. These are indoctrinated people who don't know any better than what they're doing.
And that doesn't take away from the fact that he has harmed the LGBTQ people. Like
Absolutely.
he has perpetuated policy and said really hurtful things, very bigoted things. But like seeing him be outed like that, now you realize like so much of it was projection and hate against himself, most likely. And that's just because the circles that he's in are not allowing him. Like, that would be the worst thing for people to know. Like, I remember growing up in homophobic circles and thinking like, oh, it would be the worst thing ever if I turned out gay. You know, like you automatically have this fear because everyone around you like just hates queer people, and there's really no reason for it. And I don't know. I think that's, for me, like, I didn't even care about the lingerie pictures, like the crash and burn and everything else, but the video, which I saw against my will. I was literally just reading the news on Twitter, and everything I've learned about Madison Cawthorn has been against my will. But anyway, but when I saw the video, I was like, oh, he's probably gay, you know? And I don't know. That's a special type of prison to be in the closet and to know that if you were ever known that you'd be hated, and then to hate yourself. Like, I didn't mean to turn this like serious on Madison Cawthorn, but I feel for people that are in the closet.
It's a good point you raise, and his community and his ideology put massive shame on him that he would not be able to be honest were that the case. And it has to be incredibly shameful to have all of these pictures and videos dripping out against him. So it does have to be a painful time for him.
Peter said, I'm ruining Jeremy's game. I'm sorry. Well, and I also think it's also very telling that the final straw, like he's had dirt come out on him for months, and the final straw was the gay stuff. You know, like that's also super telling.
Well, it was very, but listen, it was very much a play by either somebody in his own camp, his opposition, or a joint venture by someone in the Republican Party and his opposition, right? So, which I guess that would have been the same since it was a primary, but there was no mistake in the way that these things have leaked out, in the time frame that they've leaked out in. I mean, this has all been intentional by somebody behind the scenes pulling the levers. So, but yeah, I hope that he is able to, number one, just rebound from, it seems like he kind of got into the game and, tried to play hard and fast, and, like live it big and be the Washington big shot. And, he just got out over his skis.
He made some choices in all this.
Yeah, he made some choices.
He's definitely not innocent, for sure.
Oh, he's not innocent, and he is far from it. And what I will say is like, yes, while I 1,000% agree that he has probably been indoctrinated, he's not being honest with himself. He has still hurt a lot of people. Yeah. And he has caused a lot of harm. He's caused a lot of damage, and he's the one who decided to go, be a playboy in Washington, D.C. and, live it big and, whatever, to the point where his wife left him and all that kind of stuff. Like, he made those choices. Madison's a big boy. He made those choices.
Yeah.
And so, at the end of the day, I hope he does discover himself. I hope he does decide to be true to himself and true to others about who he is. I really desire that for him. But at the same time, you made your bed, big boy, like, you're going to lay in it. So, I hope that it's the thing that gets his attention. But I would venture to say, that the next thing that he does is he may be Tucker Carlson's co-host.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Do you think, though, has he not lost credibility with the right?
Oh, you cannot lose credibility with the right.
Yeah.
You can't lose what you don't have. Like,
that's
credibility. What the hell's credibility?
They don't care about that. That's a fair point.
Credibility doesn't get votes.
He could be a TSA agent.
Green,
he could become a TSA agent. He knows a lot about guns at airports.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that too. Jimmy,
twice.
You know what? He shot himself in his own foot.
Accidentally tried to carry a gun onto an airplane.
How do you?
He's gonna become a life coach. He's gonna call it like Monster U. He's gonna train up his own little monsters.
Yeah. He's gonna be a dean at Trump University, I think.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know. I think he may be used up for Donald Trump. Donald can cut you loose pretty quickly, and he may be on the cut loose line for Donald.
Well, you know, and Donald Trump stumped for him.
You lose an election, and you're of no use to Donald Trump.
Yeah, well, Donald Trump probably thinks, you know, I know Donald Trump thinks that it is Madison Cawthorn's fault, never his fault. He didn't do anything wrong.
Maybe he has more dirt on the GOP, and now that he has nothing to lose, he can release it all.
The Memoirs of Madison Cawthorn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what he's going to write a book.
Oh, the tell-all, the Washington details.
Life coach and write a book.
If Dr. Oz loses in Pennsylvania, maybe he could co-host some, infomercials with Dr. Oz.
I bet he could be a salesman for My Pillow.
Oh my God. That is, I mean, I guess he could. That is always a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, April, thanks for caring for Madison in the middle of teaching.
Well, no, I mean, he's definitely an awful person. I don't want to downplay that.
No, I think that's a great point, though. I think
it's
a
human being.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's
Barely,
loved by God just
still.
like we are.
Yeah.
He's loved by God just the way we are. And we have to, we have to remember that. Whether we like that or not, or whatever that feels like, he is passionately loved by God just like we are.
Yeah.
And so
step out of your right-wing echo chamber, everybody, so you don't end up like Madison Cawthorn.
Speaking of a right-wing echo chamber, I meant to say this earlier, but I found out right before the show that I'm blocked by Allie Beth Stuckey on Twitter, and I have never interacted with her. She must have been a.
She preemptively blocked you.
I don't know why. I've never that I remember tweeted her or quote tweeted her, and
I need to see if she's talking shit about you somewhere.
I have no idea. I'm wondering if maybe I liked a comment or something that I have no idea. I don't know why I'm blocked, but anyway, I'm blocked. So,
by the way, I do want to throw this out there. A what?
Sorry, it was Beecher's comment.
Oh,
that he wants a shirt with Madison's face that says he's still a human being. ... Barely.
I think that's really fantastic. By the way, I want to shout out to a friend of mine on TikTok, and the first Black man to win a major party nomination for Senate in Kentucky, Mr. Charles Booker, won the nomination for the Democrat Party last night in Kentucky. So congratulations to Charles Booker, and good luck for him in the general election, because the senators in Kentucky are lacking.
We also need to cheer on Marcus Flowers, who is running against Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yes, I like Marcus Flowers a lot. Yeah, send Congress flowers. I love that. He's got some great stuff. All right. Any last thoughts, Paul?
No, I was just I know we don't do personal stuff on here, but I am doing a thing in Southern California. So if anybody's in SoCal, reach out to me. We're going to be hanging out while my kid goes to Disneyland. I'm not going to go and pay that money to go to Disneyland, but so any SoCalers, let me know. And then we've got to get our meetups together.
Yeah, we're going to. We've got to figure it out.
So we're going to do that in 2022 for sure.
For sure. All right. Well, for Paul and April, I'm Jeremy. Thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. We will be back next week at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. And so definitely don't forget to tune in. For the rest of us, that's 9, 8, and 6. Yeah, I refuse to be a time zonist ever again. I am a time zone ally. So anyway, 9876 right here on the Evangelicals YouTube. Don't forget, love God, love people passionately, no strings attached. We will see y'all next week.